Okay, it is 3 p.m. Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. I'd like to call the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Commissioner Brown.
Commissioner Brown present, attending remotely from Washington Township, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Sabatini.
Commissioner Sabatini attending remotely from Macomb Township, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Commissioner Kleinfeld attending remotely from East Point, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Romano.
Commissioner Romano, District 4, Sterling Heights, present and participating remotely in Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Kraft.
Commissioner Phil Kraft attending remotely from Chesterfield Township, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Haw.
Commissioner Haw attending remotely, Roseville, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Wallace. Commissioner Song.
Commissioner Song attending remotely from Warren, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Commissioner Van Sickle attending remotely, Sterling Heights, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Zinner.
Commissioner Barbara Zinner attending remotely from Harrison Township, Michigan, Macomb County.
Commissioner Matuzik.
Commissioner Matuzik participating remotely from Clinton Township, Macomb County, Michigan.
Commissioner Farrington.
Commissioner Farrington voting remotely from Utica, Macomb County, Michigan.
And Commissioner Nard.
Commissioner Nard present and voting from Warren, Macomb County, Michigan.
And that completes the roll call.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Need a motion?
Moved by Romano to adopt the agenda.
Support.
Motion by Romano, supported by Haw. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Commissioner Van Sickle, I think we're having technical difficulties we can work through. Can you just do a verbal vote for this one? Oh, there we go. That motion passes 12-0.
Okay. Next item is approval of minutes dated March 16th, 2021. Can I get a motion to approve?
Matuzik moves approval.
Support by Nard.
Okay. Motion by Matuzik, supported by Nard. Any discussions, corrections on the minutes? Seeing none, please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation. For those who would like to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes on an item which is on today's agenda only. The second opportunity for public participation is for those who would like to speak on issues other than what's on today's agenda. Staff, do we have anyone on the phones or in the chat that would like to speak?
Chair, we do not appear to have anyone on the phone or in the chat box.
Okay. As for public participation, going once, going twice. If you're on the phone, *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, we'll close public participation. Next item is presentations. First presentation is from the Treasurer's Office for a department overview. We have Joe Biondo and Christina Miller here from the Treasurer's Department. And I'll take a motion to receive and file 6A.
Motion made.
Motion by Nard.
Support
by
Van Sickle.
Okay, motion by Nard, supported by Van Sickle. Chief Deputy Treasurer, Joe Biondo, I think we have you here.
Yes, I'm on. Thank you. Shall I begin?
Joe, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Hello, Commissioners.
Hello.
I'm here on behalf of the Treasurer, who's excited to share the story here on the second floor of the County Administration Building on what we're doing here on behalf of our county residents. And so if you bear with me, I will pull up our presentation. It should just take a moment here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just go ahead and highlight the fact, obviously, I'm talking on behalf of the County Treasurer, Larry Rocca. He's in the first year of his second term, and he leads the team here on the second floor. We have 30 people that report to work here on the second floor. And the purpose, or why we get together here, and why our partners in county government, such as the commissioners and the executive, give us the tools that we need to do our job, is so that we can deliver to our residents on these two primary functions: to collect delinquent taxes, of course, on behalf of the local communities. I'm going to get into a little bit of the detail on that because it's pretty interesting as far as the legislative history behind that process. But certainly the number one priority of Treasurer Rock and his team here is to keep people in their homes, to prevent foreclosures in our neighborhoods, and at the same time collect the taxes that need to be collected to finance all levels of government. The locals benefit, obviously, because they get paid right away for what they're owed, and then it's up to the county to collect on the delinquent taxes. And like I said, I'll dig into that in a little bit. And then the second primary function the Treasurer's Office serves here is to act as the custodian of all county funds. We hold all the money, all county funds. And so we're proud of some of the accomplishments that the Treasurer has achieved over the last few years, kind of going through these main tasks here. And you'll see why in just a moment as we dig through the data. Property tax liens, forfeitures, foreclosures, the kind of stuff that most people don't talk about, but certainly becomes a topic for the kitchen table if you find yourself in financial difficulty and you're dealing with the tax notice for delinquent taxes. And the message that Treasurer Rocca wants us to put out is, even though, according to the Michigan General Property Tax Act, you owe the money and you don't pay, after 3 years we can foreclose on you. We really don't want to do that. And what we want to do instead is work out a payment plan for you to stay in your home. But certainly this is the legal remedy in place for local governments in the county to get the funding they need. Now, I highlighted earlier, or I noted that we had a legislative change. Prior to 1999, basically what would happen is the delinquent tax liens would be sold to the public, and then the investors that happen to buy that tax lien would be responsible for foreclosing on that. The legislature looked at this in '99 and changed it. They changed it so that the county treasurer would be the person that would be involved in this, as opposed to a private investor. And there was a number of reasons of why that happened, but the legislature looked at it, they fixed it, and they felt that the treasurer needed to be the person that handled this issue, so that the taxpayer that would be in this situation would get a fair shake. So kind of like what I highlighted, tax liens are forfeited to the county treasurer. I won't get into the nitty-gritty details of the dates. I have a timeline in the presentation for the commissioners to look at your leisure, and certainly happy to answer any follow-up questions you might have after you look at that. But the bottom line is, you're supposed to pay your taxes. If you don't, they become delinquent. County treasurer collects after 3 years if you do not respond to any of our notices to work out a payment plan. What happens after we foreclose is we have a tax auction, and it's a public tax auction, and the top bidder takes the property. A big development in the world of county treasurers was the Raffaelli decision. This decision came out summer of last year. There's a number of cases that involve a number of county treasurers, Macomb County included, and they're sort of dealing with the aftermath of Raffaelli. The reason I wanted to highlight here for this broad overview for the commissioners is just to point out something that, and maybe this is more a benefit to the public, is to highlight that Raffaelli dealt with surpluses from the public tax auction. This is different than from the DTRF surplus, and if you don't recognize the acronym, that's Delinquent Tax Revolving Fund, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later in the slide. But the bottom line is Raffaelli deals with the tax auction surpluses. So we auction off the properties each year. If we collect more than the tax liens that were owed on those properties, that's considered a tax auction surplus, and that is the surplus that Raffaelli deals with. Raffaelli does not address the surplus from the DTR fund to the general fund, and it's a separate issue, and we're not concerned about Raffaelli really impacting the surplus from the DTR fund to the general fund. But moving on here, I wanted to highlight why we do what we do. The legislature put the rules in place for us to essentially perform what they consider an essential public purpose, which is return property to productive use in the community. And that's why we have this whole process. Moving on, the General Property Tax Act, which allows for the foreclosure process, and it's basically what all the county treasurers operate under, uses the term foreclosing governmental unit. Now, under the state law, it could either be the county treasurer or the state. And in Macomb County, it's the treasurer. It's always been the treasurer since they made this an option. You can tell here the history. 51 counties initially opted to allow the state to foreclose on it. Macomb County, as indicated, opted to do it on their own. Over time, and you can see the updates here, it's gotten to the point where really, I believe only 8 counties are foreclosing, are handling the foreclosures through the state. So just an example of how Macomb County was out in front in this trend, and the rest of the counties are sort of catching up to that position. This is the property tax foreclosure timeline I promised you. I had to break it up into 4 slides. And really, the reason this is included is to obviously show you the timeline, but hopefully confirm that we're very regulated in terms of what we need to do, when we need to do it. As you can imagine, the legislature put in notice requirements throughout the process. So during the 3-year process, we're sending out notices. We're levying, attaching certain fees for different things that we're doing in terms of the services involved that the county's providing to collect on this. The main takeaway on this slide happens to be this one right here, the second line from the top. We have to charge a 4% administration fee, and there's interest, and it's phrased as, shall, meaning we have to collect that. That's a question that we get a lot from taxpayers, something that you might be asked. And certainly we encourage any commissioner that gets asked any of these questions on this stuff to refer them to the treasurer's office, and we'd be more than happy to walk through the process with them. Again, more of the timeline here. As you can see, very detailed in terms of what we need to do. It's technical work, and we have the team in place because of the resources provided to us by the exec and the board to perform these tasks. So we're happy about that, and we want to keep a good thing going. I'm not going to really dig into this. We could probably spend several hours talking about these 4 slides. So in the interest of time, I'll move on. Again, this is just a broad overview. And at the end of this, I'll invite all of you to reach out if you have any follow-up questions or specific issues you want to dig into. This is the last slide for the timeline. I'll move on. So the general process is someone runs into financial hardship. They either receive a tax notice or they hear about the fact that, the county treasurer wants to help people in their situation. And so what happens is we basically ask them to fill out a hardship application. We provide that on our website. We used to hand it out in person. Long story short, they have to fill out the hardship application. We review it to make sure they meet certain things that need to be met to qualify. And long story short, we've been doing everything we can under Treasurer Rocca's leadership to increase the amount of payment plans in order to reduce the number of foreclosures. I'm highlighting MISHTA here, and the Michigan State University Extension Office is because they've been great partners for the county in terms of helping people stay in their homes, and they should be highlighted for that. Some of you may know that Michigan State Housing Development Authority was sort of involved with providing funds to taxpayers who were facing foreclosure. It was a way for them to avoid foreclosure, another tool, so to speak, for the taxpayer. And so I know from talking to other county treasurers with Treasurer Rocca that I think there's interest in having them do some more of that, obviously, with everything going on in the world. Michigan State University Extension, they're a great resource for us because every person that comes into the treasurer's office for a payment plan, we have them sit down with the folks over at MSU Extension for financial counseling. It's a part of the requirement for the payment plan. And so that's important to highlight. I think the numbers speak for themselves. So the number of foreclosed properties in terms of what was forfeited has been trending down every year. We have the numbers here. You can see where the rate was 5% in 2016, and it basically went down 1% each year to less than 20 or less than 1% in 2020. And 2020 was sort of a special year along with this year, and I'll discuss that shortly. But this is a graph of those numbers, 2016 through 2019. Obviously, things are trending the way we want, right? We want payment plans going up, foreclosed properties going down. So obviously, COVID-19 impacted the office like all other countywide offices. We're going basically the whole time. We never shut down the treasurer's office. We transitioned to being open by appointment only. And obviously we did that to keep the staff safe and the employees safe. And some of the things involved in that was looking at what people were dealing with. And the treasurer made the decision that, we needed to withhold the occupied homes and businesses from tax foreclosure. He did that last year. He did that this year. Just doesn't make sense to, we're talking about removing people from their home and putting them out on the streets, right? So it's the last thing we want to do in the normal time, let alone during COVID-19 and pandemic and all this. Another thing to think about is every challenge can be looked at as an opportunity to improve. And certainly that was the way that Treasurer Rocca led his team in terms of dealing with COVID-19. So like I said, we transitioned to being open by appointment only. We were basically encouraging folks to either pay online. It's very popular for folks to pay online with an e-check. There's a $1 fee with that. So you're talking about expense of $1 a month. They can pay online, make payments towards the delinquent taxes and not have to even come in. Treasurer Rocca had a Dropbox installed at the county admin building, I want to say summer or fall of last year. So we've been doing everything we can to make it as convenient as possible for folks to pay. And it's been well received. Most people transitioned relatively easy to paying online or mailing in their payments or simply dropping it off at the Dropbox if they were unsure about mailing it out. So things are moving in the right direction on the foreclosure front. Another thing that Treasurer Rocca put in place last year in the lead up to this year, knowing that people were going to be struggling, prior to last year, you only had basically what was available to you was a payment plan where you had time to pay, but you still had to pay the fee and the interest. And I highlighted the law earlier to kind of provide the background that generally that was the case. At the beginning of last year, a new law took effect. It was the Stay As You Pay legislation. And this led to a conversation and a review of different payment options we could offer. And Treasurer Rocca expanded the Keep Macomb Your Home program to offer 4 different tiers of payment plans, some of which involve actually waiving a portion of the delinquent taxes. Now, we walk through taxpayers interested in this stuff and make sure they qualify for one of these payment plans. But I wanted to highlight that options have been expanded, and it's a bit technical on who can qualify for what. So certainly, if anybody calls a commissioner asking about one of these programs, again, please direct them to us. We'd love to sign them up and to keep them in their home in Macomb County. I'm going to transition here to total investment income. The other major thing we do here is obviously hold the money, which involves the investments. As you can see, the county was dealing with the low interest rate environment for quite some time. And as it started to increase in 2016, 2017, 2018, the treasurer's office obviously took advantage of the higher rates. And so we saw a dramatic increase of the total investment income to the county. I mean, you can see in 2019, our best year, we almost broke $7 million in total investment income. So unfortunately, this is going to be trending the other way, right? We all know that we're dealing with a low interest rate environment. And so we're going to be working on ways to making sure that we invest safely and maximize returns. And we can discuss a little bit more of that when we cover the investment policy that's on the agenda a little bit later. But I did want to highlight that. I also have this slide in here just to reference that, you know, we provide a number of services. Part of the tax foreclosure process is obviously the tax settlement process, where we make sure the locals get paid what they're supposed to get paid. The county treasurer's office manages the county land file department. We have more than 360,000 parcels in the county, which is an amazing number to think about. And we're in charge of assigning parcel ID numbers to that and keeping track of legal descriptions and all of that so that people can trust in the fact that we have good title here in Macomb County. Public sector, of course, handles the public that comes in to make payments. We have a bookkeeping department. So just wanted to touch on those couple things. Also highlight the fact that the treasurer is involved in the election commission, all the retirement boards. I believe he's the only countywide official who sits on all the pension boards. And so that's another thing I wanted to highlight. And so we're here at the end of the slide. As I indicated, this was just a brief overview. We could literally talk about tax foreclosure and the rest of the stuff we do for quite a long time, but more than happy to continue that conversation on any questions the commissioners might have another time.
Thank you, Joe, for the presentation. Glad to hear all the changes that were made by the treasurer's office to keep people in their homes. Obviously, that's extremely important, and I was glad to see the investment income. Obviously, we're trending in a different way, but kudos to the upward trend, you know, during those previous years. So, Commissioner Kleinfeld, I have you next to speak.
Well, Joe's indicated twice that he'd be happy to answer questions at another time. So if he would prefer that we wait till make budget or something, I'm fine with that. My questions aren't a big hurry. So it's up to him.
Commissioner, I'm more than happy to try to answer your question now, and you know, I'm more than happy to follow up as well. I would defer to the commissioner.
Okay. With respect to Raffaele, didn't those proceeds go into the tax revolving fund in the past?
Yeah, so in the past, and the reason why I limited my comments on Raffaele, even though it's like the hottest subject in the world of county treasurers, is because, as you know, the county's involved in some litigation, and I don't want to prejudice the county's negotiating position in terms of any settlement they might be discussing. But big picture, I can comment on the fact that, yes, in years where there was a tax auction surplus, it would have gone into the DTR fund. I will note, though, and I think it's relevant here, I started working in January of 2017. I believe there was only 1 year where we had a surplus. Typically, in Macomb County at least, the experience has been that when we would auction off the properties, we would auction it off for the amount of the tax liens owed. So technically, there was no tax auction surplus for that given year. I want to say it was 2000 and either 18 or 19 where we had a surplus, and the surplus was, I believe, about $100,000.
Okay, well, first of all, that answers my question as to why it wouldn't affect the tax revolving fund. And that was really interesting to know, because I will have to have maybe a phone call question with you regarding that then, because I have some questions regarding local units of government. But you really answered one of the questions by telling me that. The other question with regard to that, and I don't know if it applies to us, I understand that because of Raffaele, some counties, and I think probably particularly rural counties, are fighting to have the state open back up where they take over and handle it as opposed to the locals. Is that something you guys are even looking at, or is that something that would be more appropriate for like a rural county or something of that? Is it just something that isn't our interest? It's just the interest of other counties.
If I understand your question correctly, Commissioner Kleinfeld, Macomb County is not interested in something like that.
Okay.
And whether
I don't have an opinion. I was just curious.
yeah,
Okay.
I think you'll find when this is all said and done that Macomb County did the best in terms of the aftermath of Raffaele compared to the other counties.
Well, if the case that sparked this was over a ridiculously low tax. I think it was under $10 or something in the house.
I believe it was $9. I actually have it right here. It was $8.41 on the one.
And Oakland County seized the home and sold it and kept the profits. And now you guys know why all the counties in the state are dealing with this.
All I can comment is on behalf of Treasurer Rocca, and what I would say on behalf of Treasurer Rocca is he's always looked at the tax foreclosure process as a last resort tool, never as a money-making operation for the county, and I think that's the appropriate way to look at that tool.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Chair Brown.
Commissioner, I can't hear you, sir.
I don't think anyone can. Chair Brown, are you there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, thank you, and thank you for the treasurer for being a source of revenue for our budget every year. You're one of the few departments that actually brings in revenue for us every year, and we're very grateful for that. For Commissioner Kleinfeld asked some of the questions I had regarding Raffaele, but you did say something that you auctioned property off only for the value of the taxes owed.
Yeah, so to clarify,
my comment pops in my head. Really? I mean, that certainly. How do you do that? How do you manage that?
Yes, sir.
Only auction off a home just barely for what happens to be what you owe in taxes on it.
Yeah, if I can comment on that, just real quick. When we set up the county tax auction for these foreclosed properties, the minimum bids have always been what the tax liens were. So in the past, we would set it up for an initial bulk bid auction. And then assuming that it would sell at the bulk bid, typically, in fact, that's what happened one year when we had a surplus. We had 4 bulk bidders and they bid it up to $100,000 over what was owed. Normally, that doesn't happen that way. But again, when we sell these properties, you got to remember our obligation under state law is to collect the taxes owed. So of course, we need to auction the properties for what is owed. And if through the auction process, participants bid it up above and beyond what's owed, then that's the tool the legislature gave us to handle the tax auctions.
Several years ago, the treasurer wisely bundled about 60 or a large number of properties at once. Was that the time when we went up over the threshold of we made more than what the taxes were owed when we bundled all those properties together one time?
So I would have to double check the one you're referring to, but if it's the one I'm thinking, there would have been no surplus because there was one bidder who bid on the package and he bid the minimum amount, which was what all the tax liens were. And so he bought it for the minimum amount of taxes that were owed on all those properties.
Okay, well, good. Well, that delinquent tax revolving fund's been the goose that's been laying golden eggs for this county's budget for decades. And we want to make sure that thing continues to be operating properly. And I'm confident under your management, the treasurer's management, you'll protect it. So One other question on EFTs, electronic fund payments or transfers. Are all of our county departments mandated to receive money that way? And if not, what are the barriers to doing that?
So no one's mandated to do that. The treasurer looks at the other countywide offices and other departments as clients of the county bank, so to speak. So what we do is we talk to the countywide official or the department head that wants to implement something like that for their department. We'll sit down, we'll review their needs. We always include the IT department in that and the finance department to make sure that, you know, the left hand knows what the right hand's doing and we're all on track. So it's really a case-by-case approach. And a lot of that stuff in terms of the implementation side of it, in my view, and this is my personal view, a lot of it has to do with the IT stuff being the issue, which our IT department works through with the relevant county department. Sometimes it's hard to integrate with, with the IT side of this stuff. So that to me is the only real hurdle the county faces when the department wants to do something like that. Does it have the IT resources? Yes. Are those resources available now or later in the year? And usually that gets into the conversation of, implementation timetables and whatnot.
You say countywide, what countywide elected, like Public Works, they obviously, they have,
yeah, so like
fully implemented, which I guess the county of which departments are fully implementing this strategy, because it's a cost savings to us, obviously. By
it is, and
not handling paper, and it's actually kind of backwards to be receiving paper these days.
Yeah.
So
it's certainly something that I think everyone I've talked to is interested in accomplishing and getting to. And if you like, maybe we can have a meeting to kind of like do an in-depth review of each department, or I can provide materials to you to kind of look at what each department's doing.
I don't want to step on I know that you're implementing, I don't want to step on your toes. I'm just trying to, is there something that this board could do to push this process along?
I understand your question now, sir. Let me do this. Let me review it and get back to you if I can.
That'd be fine.
All right,
again, that's the purview of the executive to determine how to administer the county, but if you need an ordinance or something like that, or something that, I don't know, whatever we could do to help, it'd be helpful. It's helpful for our constituents in the end, and it's helpful for our bottom line is another reason. So thank you, Mr. Biana, for coming in. You do an excellent job for the treasurer, and give Treasurer Rock our regards. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joe. When you're selling these foreclosures, do you have a percentage, or what is the percentage of people purchasing out of state? Do you have a percentage on that? I've had people mention this to me before. People are, citizens are concerned about that. Do you have a percentage?
I don't have any information on that, but Commissioner, if you give me the time, I'd like to follow up once I talk to the staff here to see if we can get that information to you.
Possibly it's just people that have had situations that they've had to deal with in their neighborhoods. If you watch the house shows, there's people, they're showing you how they're redoing houses all over the country, and I'm not sure that is necessarily what citizens have mentioned to me, but it's something that they've been watching and they're concerned about because they're not here necessarily managing it. Well, they're not going to be here managing it. They have other people managing it, but that may work out well. Sometimes it doesn't always work out well. So anyway, I was just curious if there was what the percentage was, and thank you very much.
I'm curious now as well, and I will get that to you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Biondo.
Hello, sir.
If I understood right, you made comments about some of the bidders on these properties bidding it up. So I assume that means it's a live auction versus a sealed bid auction or something?
It is a live auction, and I found out basically when I started that the chief deputy treasurer has to be the auctioneer, and it was quite the experience.
I've heard auctions. I'd like to hear you do that sometime.
No, you don't.
Now, did you do those via virtual while we had the shutdown, or did you actually have live auctions?
So yeah, so each year it's always been a live auction. Last year we actually had it as a live auction on the outside of the county administration building. We had a table out there. It was decent weather. I want to say we had 4 bidders show up, and so again, you know, our focus is to collect taxes, and we can't be left stuck holding the bag as far as the properties. So, you know, our perspective is if we collect the full amount of the taxes and we unload the properties, that's mission accomplished for us at the public tax auction.
Well, that was my next question. How many bidders showed up? You said 4. How many properties did you actually auction off? Do you recall that?
Yeah, I want to say last year was around 83 properties, something like that.
And those announcements that the auction's going to happen is done in the newspaper?
Yes, sir. So, you know, in that timeline, one of the things we have to do is a public advertisement of the auction. And so, yes, we provide the notice. In fact, we put all that information on our website, macombtreasurer.com. I'll take you right there. That information has not been uploaded yet because we're still at the point in the year where we're reviewing things before that list gets uploaded. But when that list does get uploaded, I'll notify the commissioner so you guys can take a look at what we have there.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, looks like Commissioner Kleinfeld on the second round.
Yeah, I apologize, Chair. One thing I forgot to ask is the money that goes back after Raffaelli, is that minus administrative? Are we allowed to assess administrative fees prior to that money going back?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes.
Okay. And then with respect to Commissioner Zinner's question, it'll be hard for you to ascertain because cities have, and I believe townships have the first right of refusal. And what she may be hearing about, I certainly know in East Point, there the council's not too happy, and I know I haven't been too happy that like 40 homes were sold to, you know, a guy in Australia or something. You wouldn't have that knowledge because that takes place, you're removed from that step. So you would only know a very small percentage of those that are going to people out of state. Would you agree with that?
Well,
or do you get that information?
yeah, I mean, technically speaking, we get it because we have the land file department here. So we'll see, you know, when they record deeds, who the new property owner is. But, you know, we had this conversation, Commissioner Kleinfeld, I want to say 4 years ago, and I found it to be a rewarding conversation to me because it forced me to kind of analyze the process, and it led me to the opinion, and Treasurer Rocca really agrees, is that we want local control as much as possible, which is why it's nice in the tax foreclosure process, the locals have the first right of refusal, right? We fulfill our job of collecting the tax liens. The locals, if they care enough to exercise local control, have the opportunity to buy those properties and, you know, exercise whatever local control they want. And if they decide not to, the county treasurer can't be left holding these properties. We don't have, let's just leave it at that. We don't want to be responsible for these properties. And so we do auction them off to private investors. You know, I got to say, though, with the change in 1999 where they stopped selling to the private investors the tax liens and leaving it to the private investors to decide to foreclose on it, I think that was a dramatic improvement to the old foreclosure process. And I think that addresses a lot of maybe a lot of the things you're raising, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that it's not always your department that's doing that. There are other entities that are doing that that you're not responsible for. Was my point there. You know, if the city of East Point goes and does that, that's not your issue. You didn't have anything to do with that. And I just wanted Barb to understand that there are other entities involved. Thank you, and I apologize, Chair. I won't chime in again.
Thank you, Commissioner.
No problem. All right, I don't see anyone else Any other commissioners that'd like to speak? Thank you, Joe, for the overview. And I know there's an open invitation to all the commissioners to reach out to the Treasurer's Department and certainly do a tour or ask any other follow-up questions that you need. Okay, please vote.
Hall votes yes.
That motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item on the agenda for 6B, Treasurer's Office again here for the first quarterly report. Joe Biano is going to be presenting along with Christina Miller. So I just need a motion to receive and file.
Motion.
So
to
moved,
receive
Van
by
Sickle.
I believe it was, motion was by Farrington, supported by Van Sickle. Christina or Joe, I don't know who's leading this one off.
I think I will. I'll just note that hopefully the paperwork was submitted with the proper orientation. We were going crazy to make sure that was the case. Okay, very good. I just wanted to highlight regarding the first quarter investment report. I was initially thinking we were going to cover this after we discussed the investment policy. The reason being is, some of the changes we want to make to the investment policy will down the road, for example, if that gets accepted by the board, we want to provide additional information to the investment report that you're looking at now, just something sort of showing like the distribution of the portfolio. But regarding specific questions the board might have about any of the investments, Christina's here to answer them. I think big picture, we know we're in a low interest rate environment. We're looking at interest rates going as high as only 20 basis points or 1/5 of 1% at this point. And so, those are headwinds that we're facing as a county. And, we're on track this year. Our best analysis is that we'll probably be making total investment income of somewhere between what we did in 2016 and 2017. So that's what we're looking at here. And I'll end my remarks there. Again, any specific questions, Christina is available to answer them. I'll defer back to the chair.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I don't see any speakers. I know this is just a receive and file. So we'll go ahead and vote. And obviously, if there's any follow-up questions, you can direct those to Treasurer Rocca.
Hall votes yes.
That motion passes 13-0.
Okay, next item is department recommendations. 7A is the Macomb County investment policy. Need a motion to forward this to full board.
Motion by Nard.
Second, Center.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded. Joe Biondo, looks like you're back on the floor again.
Thank you, sir. Hello again, commissioners. This is a fun agenda item for me because it's an interesting subject, of course, and just to be, I want to make sure that you guys should have received a memorandum from Treasurer Rocca, kind of big picture of why we need a new investment policy. We included the old investment policy, or I should say the currently enacted policy. We submitted for your review the updated or new Macomb County investment policy we'd like you guys to approve. And then finally, I have a copy of the relevant statute that addresses this topic. So I thought what may be best would be to sort of describe the process of how we got to the new investment policy, and then answer any questions you might have. So, I was just talking about it. We saw it in the overview. We're dealing with low interest rate environment going forward. We know that. We also know that anyone that's been following the news, you've probably been seeing a lot of bank mergers, regional banks merging. Not sure quite the reason why, but the end result of that is from January of 2017 to now, the number of banks that we've been doing business with has declined. And the primary reason for that was that in the current investment policy, there was a geographical limitation. Essentially, any banks we wanted to put on the bank depository resolution, the list of banks approved for us to invest in, put money with. In order to, excuse me, pardon me for just a moment. So when we looked at the investment policy, there was a geographical requirement for them to have an office here in Macomb County for us to basically even present them to the board. We wanted to get rid of that requirement because of the fact that we need to open it up to the number of applicants that we can send your way to approve to put on the depository list. So when we were looking at that and other parts of the current investment policy, we also noticed that the older investment policy had a number of caps in terms of the distribution of the portfolio. There were another minor tweaks, but that was basically the gist of it. We want to update the investment policy to get rid of the geographical requirement of having a brick and mortar place in Macomb County so that we can do business with other banks that are operating around the state but might not have a brick and mortar location here in Macomb County. So I went to the Michigan State Treasury Department website. They had a sample investment policy, which I provided a copy of, and I basically used that as the template to create an initial draft of what eventually became the new investment policy. Now, that document was reviewed by myself. I happen to be a lawyer, for those who don't know. It was reviewed by Paige Pashand, who's our Deputy Treasurer of Collections. She's also a lawyer. It was reviewed by Frank Cretia, Assistant Corporation Counsel. We all recommended it to the Treasurer to submit to the board for approval, provided a copy to the Exec's office, Mr. Delden, and the Finance Director, Steve Smeagol. Steve said there was no issues, haven't heard of any issues. Our recommendation to this board is to adopt this investment policy so that the Treasurer's office has the tools that we need to bring forward to this board additional banks that might not have a location here in the county to consider them to be added to the list. And so I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but I want to be sure that that's the process going forward, that everyone's clear on that. The investment policy will allow us to obviously, if we remove that requirement of having an office here, I intend to be bringing banks to you from now until the end of the year as they come along and they kind of go through a vetting process that makes sense to add. That'll be a little different than in the past. Usually we just do one depository resolution at the start of the year. We'll be reviewing that with Corporation Counsel to make sure, you know, when we do these additional add-ons to the depository resolution, that's all done properly. But that's sort of the long and short of it. We need the investment policy updated, getting rid of the geographical requirement. We're getting rid of the arbitrary caps on what you can invest in. And we're keeping in the legal standard, which was part of the template that we got from the state treasury. And so with that being said, I guess I'll entertain any questions.
Hey, Joe, so basically, is the vast majority of the money going to still be held here in Macomb County?
Yeah, so the concern we have is, you know, we're down to 11 banks at this point. And so, you know, the intention is to keep as much money of that in Macomb County as possible. But if there's like, you know, a bank with a physical location in Oakland or Wayne and not in Macomb, we'll look at that, especially if it's a safe bank and they're offering higher returns. That's something that we would want to bring before the board to add to the depository resolution on acceptable banks.
And then that resolution going forward, do you see that being updated on a quarterly basis? Is that kind of the intention there?
It very well may be. We have a lead on something and it might be a standalone. And then I'm thinking either if I get some other good leads and we vet them and we want to present them, they might be one-offs, or we might save one or two of them and do it in a quarterly fashion. But, you know, we're eager here on the second floor to get these additional banks on the depository resolution as soon as possible. So the first few ones might be one-offs just to kind of get the ball rolling.
Okay. Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Joe Biondo,
hello, sir.
Job like always. Hello. I guess I have some pretty big concerns about this concept. On the smaller side, I'd like to see at least some kind of cap for Macomb-based institutions, whether it's 50, 75%, something. That's first of all. But that's a smaller issue. Did you say you also want to get rid of the caps by investment function? You know, whether it's a corporate bond, whether it's mutual fund, whether it's cash. Is that part of what you said?
So, Commissioner, if you don't mind just highlighting that again for me, what part of it are you looking at?
You said you also wanted to get rid of the diversification. I didn't know if you meant diversification.
Oh, no. What
by
what
financial institution
Yeah, so
or by instrument?
I apologize. Please finish and then I'll comment or respond.
I didn't know if it was by instrument, by geographic, or by, right now you have the cap of 20% with any one bank. What did you mean from a clarification of what you want to get rid of?
Yeah, I appreciate the question because I want to be clear on that. And so what I'm referring to as far as the caps being removed would have been, if you look at the old investment policy, when they had the acceptable investments listed, on the right side of that list of acceptable, they had a max percentage of the portfolio for the different investment types. And so instead of having that be the caps as part of basically authorized investment, we want to remove that. And then if you look at the new investment policy, right, there was no percentage cap on that. So it's by investment type. And there was no geographic cap other than to say that they needed a place in Macomb County. So,
okay. I appreciate you clarifying that. The Macomb aspect, is a preference, but I get it. There's fewer and fewer banks all the time. But as far as removing the cap on the instrument or by the maturity, I would be a heavy no, and I would do as much as I can to stop that, because that is what puts the wraps on a good investment type schedule. Now, if you want to finagle them so you can be a little more aggressive, that's obviously something that might be appropriate. But to get rid of the caps overall, I'd hate to see the county also and put 100% in something a moderate or high investment when we're fiduciaries for the county money. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Chair Brown.
Thank you, Joe. What is the minimum capitalization rate our current banks have to have as an entity?
you know what? I would have to pull that information, sir. Unless Christina happens to know off the top of her head.
During the last crash, there was a bunch of banks popped up in Macomb County banks, little private banks. They were all over the place. Then the crash hit, and all these banks went out of business, and some with deposits from the people that I knew. Yeah. So I think maybe what's necessary based on some of the questions I'm hearing is that the board needs to be more comfortable with what do you mean when you talk about getting rid of some of the arbitrary caps on investment strategies and other issues.
Yeah, we'd love to have that conversation with you, sir. If you think it'd be helpful, we can, have a meeting to go over that with, whichever commissioners you'd like to do that with.
But again, restate the goal for doing this. What was the restatement of the goal to open up to all the banks?
Yeah, so the idea here was we were going to clean up the investment policy. A part of that would be to get rid of the geographic requirement of having a brick and mortar location here in Macomb County. The other part of it, when we were reviewing the investment policy, was we removed the caps for investment types from the investment policy. And
what types would you like to see that aren't in there now, Joe?
Well, it's kind of hard to do this, I understand, with the Zoom. What I would recommend, and maybe it'd be helpful to do it in person, is to kind of compare the new investment policy to the old policy. But under the old investment policy, the bank needed a minimum net worth of, it looks like, $1 billion in order for it to be an authorized investment. I'm looking at paragraph 8 of the old investment policy. But I'm going to review the remarks today, and I can follow up with Commissioner Farrington and the chairman on furthering the conversation on the investment policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, I trust the leadership in the Treasurer's office, but along with my statement here, what if there would be a change in leadership? And my follow-up is, would it be stated that you would stay within Wayne and Oakland counties? And my next question with that is, if there was would you go out of the country? I mean, where would this money possibly go? And what percentage you may get, or that's what you're looking for? I understand moving money around. The treasurer, you guys have made great money for the county, but is there a statement on how far would you go?
Yeah, so
be a change. What would be the scenario for?
Yeah, so under the new investment policy, as far as, for example, something like a CD, they would have to be a Michigan bank that was, approved by the board through a depository resolution. So I guess what I'm saying is, by making the changes to the investment policy, keep in mind the second part of this would be the Treasurer's office presenting to the board an amended or updated depository resolution saying these are, with the updated investment policy in place, these are the additional banks we want to add, and you guys would vote that up or down like you do the depository resolution every year. And so I guess knowing that state law requirement, I can tell you the intention of the treasurer here would be to present Michigan banks, banks that do business in Michigan. That would be the focus here. In other words, let's open it up for the Macomb County Treasurer to invest in banks, not just in Macomb County, but banks that might be in any other county in the state, but are Michigan regulated and chartered and whatnot.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matusek.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Joe.
Hello, ma'am.
I too have concerns about moving away from Macomb County banks. I do understand that there are fewer and fewer banks. On the other hand, if you're a consumer and the county will only do business if you have a brick and mortar, that helps our residents because it encourages them to at least keep one brick and mortar building open. That's a real concern in some neighborhoods where there are no banks anymore. But I understand the need to, diversify our locations. I am concerned. I do think there should be at least some cap that some amount has to be in Macomb County banks as a compromise. But I guess I'm curious, are we not getting good rates out of the Macomb County banks? I never really heard you talk about the issue other than wanting more diversity and more opportunity.
Thank you for the question. And to elaborate on this, so the rates we've been getting right now, we're looking at maybe 20 basis points. So, 1/5 of 1%. And so, yes, the focus here is to hopefully find banks that offer higher interest rates. But, the primary push for this is to diversify. Chances are most of the banks that we're going to go out and find that do business in the rest of the state, they're going to have interest rates that are comparable to the interest rates that, our local banks are charging. And Treasurer Rocca is all about doing everything we can to invest in Macomb County, and we would still do that. It's just a question of, making sure we fulfill our fiduciary duties here to properly diversify the county's investments. So the recommendation from the treasurer and his staff is that, this new investment policy would allow us to do that. And I'm more than happy to continue that conversation and take your feedback and discuss it further.
Thank you. Again, my preference would be a significant portion has to go to be invested with banks that have a presence in Macomb County. Certainly not going outside of Michigan would be also my preference. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, I'll go back to what Commissioner Zinner said. I have a great deal of confidence in what you and Treasurer Roca are doing, particularly for the citizens of Macomb County and keeping them in their homes and all that. But I share her concern about if we open the policy up too much, another set of people who come in and run the treasurer's office may not be as citizen oriented as you are. And the other issue that I was wondering about is I have no idea about if you're considered a commercial investor or whatever, or a government investor. I don't know what the classification is. But for people like us, when we put money into a bank, it's guaranteed by the government, by the feds, for a certain amount of money. And as Chair Brown said, some banks have gone under recently. Where do we fit in with any kind of deposit insurance or anything?
Well, that's a good question. We've never lost a penny. And, we're obviously proud of that. And it's something you should always be concerned about. Let me get back to you on that scenario. That's a very specific scenario. And thankfully, we haven't had to go through that process. And we're always of the belief, prevention is better than remedy and all that. But more than happy to follow up, if I may, sir, regarding that subject with you after I talk to the staff here.
Thank you. Just prefer not to find out the hard way.
I think we're all in the same boat on that one.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
First, I think Commissioner Van Sickle's question was with respect to the FDIC insurance. Is it the same for us as it is for an individual? And that's what I thought part of his question was.
Yeah.
So that's not a question as to whether or not we've ever lost any money. Just are we insured the same way?
Right. I understand the question. I'll have to get back to the board on that.
Okay. And then the second thing actually isn't really for Joe. It's for everybody else. Do you guys want to forward to full board? Will those discussions take place with regard to the cap and a possible percentage in Macomb? Or do you want to, because there's a motion and support on the floor, I'm just trying to find out what commissioners are thinking. If you'd prefer to hold off on this until Commissioner Farrington and Commissioner Brown have a conversation, and possibly also with respect to Commissioner Matuzak's concern on some sort of percentage in Macomb County. I was just wondering, before I cast a vote, what commissioners are thinking about that. Thank you.
That was actually my thought as well, Commissioner Kleinfeld. I know we have a full board next week, so we do have some time here. I do also have some concerns and questions. Personally, I would like to see kind of a redlined copy of just the changes that were made in the investment policy. I see others nodding their heads, so I think we're all in agreement there. But I think we have enough time here between now and then probably to get all these questions answered. So I'm not opposed to moving this to full board, and obviously can be deliberated a little bit more there if need be, and find out what happens at that point. Commissioner Nard.
Thank you, Chair. No, actually, you guys answered the question. I'm with Commissioner Kleinfeld about moving it, to so we can get more information. I'm uneasy about voting on something when I don't have all the answers and all the guarantees. So I just, I wanted to say that when you guys said that, I withdrew my request actually to speak. So I'm with moving it till another date.
Okay, so I think the motion was made by Commissioner Nard. Is that correct? The original motion?
Yes.
So, Commissioner, are you removing your motion?
No, I'm keeping the motion. Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to move it to another.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to move this to full board. Obviously, with
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I would think I was on the list.
Oh,
I think.
I didn't see you there, Chair. I have no other speakers, but if you'd like to
I'm
speak,
sorry.
you have
Just don't. There's significant questions about the policy, and that I think it's not the place to debate it and go through it as a full board meeting. If there's no objection, why don't we put this on your next finance committee agenda and give us proper time to deal with the issues and address it properly there. And also, is your investment advisor here, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I think it'd be better. I just think it'd be better, but more appropriate if we did it at committee next time, where we have a chance to see the document, read the changes in the investment policy, and do some more research on that a little bit more. I think. I just don't think the full board's a proper place to debate a serious issue like this. So, if it's worth, so that's my 2 cents. So, I'd like to see the motion just postponed until the next finance meeting, without prejudice, and we'll come back and take another look at it.
Okay.
Thank you,
I got,
Mr.
Yep. Two more speakers. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with Chair Brown. Also gives Deputy Treasurer Mr. Biondo time to get some of those questions answered. We threw some questions at him that I don't think were part of his presentation, but I'm sure he's more than willing to get those answers for us. So I totally support Commissioner Chair Brown's statement about waiting to move this to the next Finance Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Nard.
I agree with Chair Brown. I wanted to I agree. That's what I was trying to say, to give him more time to get us the answers that we need to move it to the next financial meeting.
Okay, very well. So you want to amend your motion and just postpone this to the next finance?
Yes.
Okay, and who seconded that?
I think Zinner seconded, and I second again.
Okay, very well. So we've got an amended motion here on the floor. I don't see. Oh, Commissioner Romano, would you like to speak again? No, I don't believe so.
Nope, I'm all set, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other commissioners that would like to speak, so no further discussion. If we can please vote to postpone us to the next finance meeting.
That motion passes 13-0.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 7B, Resolution 2021-6501, authorizing the City of St. Clair Shores to collect the 2021 winter tax levy on the 2021 summer tax bill for all parcels with a total tax bill of $100 or less.
Moved by Kleinfeld.
Supported by Romano.
Okay. Motion by Kleinfeld, supported by Romano. Deputy Treasurer Biondo, the floor again. Oh, I think we may have lost him. Yep, we have. He's joining again, it looks like, commissioners.
Well, Chair, if I could just say, this is something we do every year. It's pretty routine. We started it a few years back. Thank you.
Yep. Any comments, questions?
I agree. This is Commissioner Romano, Chair. Exactly what Commissioner Kleinfeld said. Just doing some housekeeping. That's all. Thank you.
Yep. I don't see any speakers.
I am back, commissioners, if you need any information on that.
Are there any commissioners that have any questions for the deputy? I don't see any, so let's vote.
That motion passes 13-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joe. I know you had a few items there, so thanks for bearing with us through this whole meeting.
Yep, thank you for everyone's time, and looking forward to connecting with you all on the investment policy to address everyone's issues. Thank you.
Very well. Next item is 7C. This is agreement with Area Aging on Aging 1B for the 2020 administration match of $60,615. Need a motion to forward this to full board.
Matusik moves to forward to board.
Support
And
Nard.
Sickles.
Okay, we have a motion by Matusik and supported by Nard. Steve Smeagol, I believe you are here to speak on this.
Yes, I also have Ernest Covey from Community Action on the meeting as well to speak about AAA 1B. His office works with him quite extensively, but essentially this is a arrangement we've had in place at the county with AAA 1B for many, many, many years, where we, along with other counties, provide support for their administrative costs. They serve as a area or a regional coordinating agency for federal dollars that are then directed into our county as well as others in that particular region, 1B. So it's been in place, as I said, for many, many years. It went up 3% from 58,000 to 60,000. It was previously 58,000 for a number of years. So we're just asking for this agreement to be approved. It's in the budget, and it's in the non-departmental budget in the general fund. It's listed as a separate line item. And I'll turn the floor over to Ernest to explain more of the inner workings of Area Agency on Aging 1B.
Yeah, glad to take any questions. And Steve got it just right. As with many federal and state funds we receive, there's often a match requirement, and the county also looks to support those funds so we can stretch them further. If you don't know about the area agencies on aging, there are over 600 in the United States. So there are a range of them. Our local AAA 1B was founded, I believe, in the 60s, maybe the 70s. And it's a long established organization. The over 600 AAAs across the country work with the Older Americans Act to receive that federal funding. They are what provide support for programs like Meals on Wheels or our congregate programs. And oftentimes when they give us that money, they require a match, which we provide, which can either be in kind or in cash. And there are requirements around both of those. In addition, we use this match from the county to help round out that budget and provide those services that we do through the AAA grants.
Okay. Thank you, Ernest. Thank you, Steve. Commissioner Bertuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am actually your all representative on the Area Agency on Aging 1B. I have to tell you, in the short time I've been there, I've learned more about federal funding than I ever thought I wanted to know. We just had a almost 3-hour orientation for new members, so I now actually feel like I have a bit of a grasp on it. There are actually 622 in the United States and 16 in the state of Michigan, and each of those 16 in Michigan provide a contribution like this to assist with the administrative costs of the area and the aging and adult services agencies in their areas. I am trying to figure out a way to make a report back to you about their activities, but they do so many activities, and Ernest does such a great job of talking about the end results of those activities that I haven't sort of figured out a form that doesn't waste people's time, but is also informative to you all. So I totally support this motion, obviously, and wanted to let you know that I'm on a really steep learning curve, but hopefully the next time we have a meeting involving Health and Human Services, that I hope to have a small report for you back about some of the upcoming things for the agency. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any other speakers. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ernest. Please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 7D, purchase of military service time for Jeffrey Drosky, 12 months. I need a motion to.
Hi, Romano. Move it full board.
Zinner, second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Steve, need to discuss anything on this?
I don't, unless commissioners have questions. I mean, this is a standard military purchase that may or may not have been to this current board in previous months with other folks, but it allows folks, the pension plan allows folks to purchase military service credits for 5% of their salary for every month that they're purchasing. So in this case, the gentleman's wishing to purchase 12 months of service. He's going to pay 5% of his salary, his annual salary, and he earns another year of service toward retirement.
Thank you, Steve. I don't see any commissioners that have any questions, so please vote.
That motion passes 12-0.
Okay, next item on the agenda is new business. Is there any new business?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Wallace. I just wanted to let you all know that I did meet with Fred Barbette from SMART, and he just reached out. He wanted me to let you all know that every commissioner, of course, is invited to come and tour the facility or, you know, do a bus ride if that's what you are interested in. There's a lot of information that he was able to give me about areas that even in my district that I did not think was affected much or used SMART public transportation as much as it actually does. So even if you can't tour the facility, because I was there for about 2 hours, you know, just reaching out to him to see how it affects your community. I was surprised also that a lot of the majority of the workers I met today were from Harrison Township. So I did let them know that, you know, their commissioner is willing to speak with them if they have any questions or concerns. But it was just good and a good time. And a lot of the employees just were willing to talk, ask questions, and just get to know me and more about our board that they were really unfamiliar with. So I just wanted to let you all know that we're all invited.
Cool. Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see anyone else that has any new business. So we close new business and move on to public participation. This is the second opportunity for public participation for those who wish to speak on any issues. And there is a 5-minute limit. Staff, do we have anyone from the public that would like to speak? Staff?
There's nobody in the chat box.
Okay. Are there anyone on the phone that would like to speak? You have to unmute yourself by hitting *6. Going once. Going twice. We'll close public participation. Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Romano to adjourn.
Support by Nard.
Okay. Please vote, commissioners.
That motion passes 12-0.
Right. All right. Thank you, commissioners. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Good day, everyone. See you.
Stay safe.
Take care.